Most doctors don't want to market themselves. It feels awkward, unprofessional, and maybe even unethical. But what if I told you there's a way to build your personal brand, grow your practice, and get more of the patients you actually want without feeling like you've sold your soul to social media?
Would you rather a room of 1,000 of your exact target audience, or would you rather a room of 1 million of like just random people? You would rather the room of 1,000 of your exact audience because you want to make sure it's the right people seeing the content, not everybody seeing the content. If you have a message you want to get across to everyone, it's not the gear that you buy, it's not the quality of the audience, whatever. It's just simply going, how do I tell people the answer they want to know as quickly as possible?
In this episode of the Investing for Doctors podcast, I sit down with marketing strategist Kan Huang to unpack what modern patient trust really looks like and why it's shifting online faster than most of us realize. We will talk about how to build authority online without chasing viral trends or dancing on TikTok, how to reduce friction so patients can actually find and connect with you, and why simple tactics like a video sales letter can help you cut through the noise.
Every extra step you want someone to take is a form of friction. But if you're running a business and you're trying to make it easier for patients to work with you, you kind of almost have to think differently. Like, how do I make their lives easier? But you can do that using technology while making my life easier as well, right? So that's kind of the stuff that people need to kind of think about. Reduce friction so that people can work with you easier.
Whether you're a private practice owner or hospital specialist, these are practical, ethical strategies that position you as a trusted expert, not just a content creator. If you ever thought, I know I need to show up online, but I don't know where to start, this episode is exactly where you start. Now let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Investing for Doctors podcast. Today, we have our social media expert, Kan, back again. Welcome
Thank you.
back, Kan.
Sorry, I'm sipping water. Thank you.
That's all right. So Kan, I think in our previous episode, we talked about the power of personal branding and what one should do at the start of their career and what are the considerations. But as someone gets into the business realm, running your own practice, being a clinician, or you want to be a influencer in your specialty and that sort of thing. I think there's a lot more sort of specific tactics and ways to promote yourself and get your ideas out there. And, how would you approach that initially, I guess? There's got to be some actionable steps. I know myself, I've done some of those things, but I think as a doctor, that can be quite, overwhelming. You're starting up your practice and then you think about all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I guess, someone that's interested in doing something, I can, probably just reach out to you and say, hey, what do we need to get started? And just have even a starting off package.
Yeah. Oftentimes they come to us, we pretty much help them claim the, all of the handles, all of the accounts, all that sort of stuff as well. And then usually I just say there's a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
Usually just pick, I always say one channel, one offer, right?
Yeah.
So if you're, and oftentimes we assess this on a case-by-case basis. Some doctors who don't mind being in front of camera, who quite enjoy and they're good on camera, we go, okay, maybe Instagram, maybe TikTok in that case. Some doctors are probably more comfortable, if they're in an area of specialty, they prefer the written content, so more SEO driven as well. Some doctors, they just don't want anything to do with it. I say, oh, maybe you do advertising, right? Obviously falling within APRA guidelines as well. But certainly there's I think there's, if you can't just say you're just doing marketing, there's actually so many
channels.
Yeah, there's so many channels. So I sort of break it down into kind of 3 ways to think about it, right? So there's what we call traffic, which is brand awareness, how many more eyeballs and impressions that you can get and visibility that you can get. And you've got all those platforms that I just mentioned. They're all what we call traffic channels because that's where people spend time. And if we think about where people spend time, the thing that you're basically looking for is you're trying to grab the attention of somebody who's already spending time. So
someone that's on there already browsing through and then they come across your stuff.
That's correct, right? And so using the example of a GP that I work with, talks about menopause or perimenopause. If you're someone who, the way these algorithms work on these platforms is very interesting now. You basically, if you're a doctor who specializes in, say, women's health, if you start talking about women's health, these platforms can understand what you talk about. They can find people who are interested in women's health and they'll just show the content to them.
Right.
So it's what we call interest-based algorithms.
Yeah.
And the way they do it is they measure and they track every little bit of behavior you spend or your audience spends on a platform.
Yeah.
So what do you like? What do you watch? How much time you watch it for? Who you follow? Who you save? Who you share? Who you send private messages to others and share content with?
Yeah.
So they've got hundreds, if not thousands of data points. And then using machine learning, they can actually figure out this type of person really likes menopause content or is looking for menopause content. And if you're a medical professional talking about it, all of a sudden, as you're scrolling through, lo and behold, these videos show up.
Yeah.
And so I could probably pull up your Instagram or your TikTok or your YouTube, and over, I think, a course of, let's say if you were actively using it for 30 days, I could understand what you like very, very quickly. It's kind of creepy.
Mostly food.
It's mainly food, yeah, food and travel. So when you think about it in the context of you helping patients who have either a condition or some sort of ailment, as an example, you can very quickly, I would say, the more acute the pain point, the more likely you are going to actually get engagement, and you're going to get views, and you're going to get exposure as well. So that's traffic, right? Yeah. So you can, there's different platforms. They all have slightly different algorithms, slightly different games. That's what we specialize in. And so we can easily kind of like talk to a medical professional and go, hey, based on what I see, knowing you, knowing who you help, knowing what you solve, and knowing where your competitive advantages are, this is the platform for you. Just focus on that platform. And once you get that platform nailed, then expand out into other platforms. Yeah. But more often than not, once you nail one platform, it's enough work that'll last you God knows how long, right? Yeah. So that's kind of like the first part. So traffic. The middle part of it is what we call conversions or nurturing. And that's oftentimes like, all right, I found out about you. I know who you are. I'm following you now. I just want to keep coming back and seeing more and more content.
Yep.
And in those cases, what nurturing is that 7-11-4. I'm now moving towards discoverability into spend 7 hours with you, watch 11 pieces of content, see you in 4 different locations, right? And then so the way to describe it is a lot of I'm just calling it businesses, or a lot of people who want to say generate customers or patients, oftentimes think when that person right now is looking for, in this case, like, oh, I'm going through menopause right now, I need to find a cure or a solution for my symptoms, right? That's only about 3% of the market that's actively looking for that right now, right? But then if you think like it's like an iceberg, tip of the iceberg, you've also got another 30 or 40% of people who are going to, like, let's just call it women who are younger, maybe in their mid-20s right through to their mid-30s, who are going to come through and probably experience the same thing. They're not actively right now looking for a medical professional, but they will down the track. Yes. So your job is trying not to capture the ones who are right now at the highest point of pain. Of course you do. Yeah. But actually, if you can build an audience and build awareness when they're not yet needing your services, what do you think is going to happen?
When they do need it.
When they do need it, they're going to go to you, right? So the non-medical example is, let's say, for example, actually, this is a really good example. I recently was on the market looking for a car, right? I'm like, I'm going to go EVs because I love EVs, right? Yeah. And so I didn't need a car 12 months ago, but Kia is damn good at marketing. So I was seeing him, like, I love sports. So I'm watching, the footy. Yes. I'm watching the Australian Open. Kia's the major sponsor. Yes. I'm seeing the Kia car. I'm seeing the EV5 and I'm like, this is a beautiful car. And then all of a sudden, business is doing all right. I've got a bit of a windfall. I'm like, I say to the wife, hey, why don't we let's go buy an EV, right? Yeah. What do we do?
You go straight to
I go straight to the Kia dealership. Yeah. I did not even look at any other car. I just bought the EV straight away, right?
That's interesting because about a little under a year ago, I also bought a car.
Oh, did you? Okay.
It's a BYD.
Ah, there you go.
And maybe I've just seen so much of it.
You've seen 7-11-4, right? Yeah. So you kind of always go back to 7-11-4. Yeah. So to use the medical professional example, actually I'll use an accountant example, which is very good to understand is, let's say, for example, you go follow an account, like you're watching, you're a business owner or you're a medical professional, you're like, I'm trying to save taxes, You see an accountant, teaching you the ways that you can structure your business, the way that you can mitigate tax, CGT, all this sort of stuff, right? And then all of a sudden, you might not need an accountant now, but let's just say, for example, tax return rolls around and your accountant does a terrible job. You're like, he's missed these deductions. She's not done this, You're like, you know what? I think it's time to change accountants. Yep. What are you going to do? Bam. You're going to go to that other accountant who's been teaching you and giving you value for such a period of time. Yeah. And so the magic is not in trying to sell anything to anyone, but to educate and give value to someone through these platforms. And so that 30 to 40%, if you're able to have the patience and the wherewithal to understand this concept, what ends up happening is as you build a sizable audience, your patient base also increases with the size of your audience as well.
Natural. Yeah.
It's a natural thing. It's just leading and lagging effect. Leading effect meaning followers and views. Lagging effect maybe 6 months down the track becomes patients and inquiries basically. So we've got traffic, then we've got nurturing or conversions in the middle, and the last one is call to action. So it's just really about making sure you're making it as easy as possible for people to be able to reach out to you and connect with you as well, right? And we things around Calendly, so being able to like have like auto booking systems right through to like links in your bio. So whether like you have a LinkedIn profile, one of the things actually really tactical on LinkedIn right now is you can have what's called a featured section. And I'm not sure if many people know about it, but basically it's like kind of like pinning your best posts or pinning your best things on it.
I've seen that.
Yep. The amount of times I've looked at someone's LinkedIn profile and they have not taken advantage of it. Yeah. You haven't done it? Okay. We're going to talk after this. But yes, the LinkedIn like featured section is great. There's always almost on every platform, there's almost like a place where you can sort of highlight what you want people to do as well. There's really cool stuff right now. Like, I'm seeing like, especially in the content creator world, there's like mini platforms like Standstore, and Standstore basically allows you to pretty much kind of like almost have like your own mini e-commerce store within your Instagram profile as well. So they'll click on it, goes out, you got all the products.
So you don't even have to go onto another platform.
Don't have to go on another platform, don't have to go on another website. Yep, it's all on one place as well. But I think it's just like a lot of the time people assume that people can find you or people are bothered to find you. And you'll be surprised how lazy and how little people actually take action. Unless, and that's why I always say is like there's kind of a spectrum when it comes to the more acute the pain point, the more effort someone's willing to put in to find you if you're the right person. The lesser the pain point or less urgent the problem, the less effort they'll put in. Because it's like smoking. They're like, oh, it's a tomorrow problem. It's a 10 years down the track. I'll worry about lung cancer when I get lung cancer problem. Versus hey, right now I've got a terminal diagnosis and I need to like address this problem right now. And so depending on which field you focus on and which areas you are in the medical field, if yours is really focused on really acute, which I think a lot of people are, then generally speaking, just simply putting in your contact details is enough to get those kind of results and get people to actually inquire as well. So that's kind of the last piece.
Okay, so it's like essentially drop the barrier as low as possible for someone.
Lower the friction. We talk about friction a lot in marketing, which is every extra step you want someone to take is a form of friction. It's another hoop that they have to jump through.
And then you have a loss there.
So one of the things that I actually see a lot is like I've been to medical practices or GPs, and it's like 40 questions or something stupid or something ridiculous, right? And I'm like, I'm not filling in 40. I'm just going to go down the road with a GP who's going to sit there and probably just ask me like the 20 questions and then get this sorted, right? But sometimes they like, I think because there's so much value put on your own time as a medical professional, you're like, well, that's for them to give to me and serve up to me on a silver platter. But if you're running a business and you're trying to make it easier for patients to work with you, you kind of almost have to think differently. Like, how do I make their lives easier? But you can do that using technology while making my life easier as well, right? So that's kind of the stuff that people need to kind of think about. Reduce friction so that people can work with you easier.
And I think you also have to make it very specialty or industry specific, because there's as a GP, it's a walk-in almost booking kind of service. Whereas as a specialty, you need to get your referral and all of that sort of thing.
You get the context from the GP.
You get the context from the GP, and then but at least if the patient has seen your website, know where you practice, how to contact you, they can literally take that detail, go to the GP to get the referral if they already have someone in mind. One like hack that is actually very handy that I've seen a lot of specialists do is they almost kind of like film a video explaining, like, so take for example, when you do consultations with your patients, you're probably explaining the same thing over and over again. And the smart ones are actually now filming it, doing it one time. And then what happens is when they get referred over from a GP, they're then sending them the video as an automated thing and go, have a watch of this before our consultation. And then when the patient comes into the consultation, they know about the condition a lot more. They've had their frequently asked questions already answered. And then the
the consultations are shorter, which means you get your time back, which is the most valuable thing. But also then the quality of the discussion with the patient becomes much better and more improved. It's richer because they're more informed. They're going from a 2 out of 10 in knowledge to an 8 out of 10 in knowledge. And all of a sudden you're just talking about the most important things that's very unique to their circumstances as well. And so I've seen specialists go from being able to handle, let's just call it 4 or 5 consultations in a single day to double or triple that amount just by simply doing this one thing. Film the video, and it doesn't have to be anything special. And then whether it's yourself or receptionist or some form of automation, you're just sending them that video beforehand.
I guess that's really good for a specialty or situations where there's a very streamlined approach to things.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, someone wants a knee replaced, right? That's a very streamlined approach. It's like, oh, why do you want to get it? These are the things we do. This is the stay. This is how long it takes. This is how much it costs. It's a very streamlined thing. Whereas if you're like an undifferentiated patient, walk into a GP practice and oh, my tummy hurts. Like, you can't really
no, you can't do that. No, it's not for every profession, but I think for specialists in particular, it's very, very handy, obviously. Yeah,
because you can almost build like pipelines of patients and have them educated almost before they walk in. And I see this a lot. Like, I mean, even for GPs specifically, maybe instead of you sending it in advance because you don't know, is I sometimes like I sit there and my GP is like typing away at the Cancer Council and then printing something out from the Cancer Council to hand to you to read after you've had the consultation. Whereas in fact, it's like, well, one of the best things you can do is rather than relying on another association or organization to create the asset, you are the asset. Yeah. So create that, put that up on YouTube, put that up on socials and be like, look, let me just send this to you afterwards. Yeah. And then it builds that 7-11-4 again with that. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's given me a lot of things to think about in, even the way I run my practice. Yeah. And so coming back to sort of actionable things, we talked about having the website as one of it. What are the key components in that website? I think we mentioned you got to have your profile, your contact details, and where you work if you work multiple sites.
Yes.
All right. Is there anything else that you think should go onto that website? I mean, obviously this is a how long is a piece of string question, but what is the bare minimum you need there? Yeah.
So a website can just be broken down to a few components. It's basically I always call it above the fold. So when you load up a website, what do you see before you start scrolling? Because a lot of people don't scroll. I used to do I used to do a lot of heat map analysis of seeing how far, and it gets colder and colder the further down the website you go. So your most important things need to be put up the top. And oftentimes I actually say either it's a headline of who you help and a photo of you, or better is what we call having a VSL or a video sales letter. So again, going back to video, because that's how most people consume these days, it's the fastest way to get value across to someone without them having to do anything. Again, reducing friction. So what a VSL consists of is who you are, what you do, who you've helped, like the type of conditions you've helped, and then examples or stories or case studies of the way that you've been able to help someone as well. Right. So that's why it's called a video sales letter. It's basically how you kind of sell yourself, or how do you promote yourself if you had a video version of that. Right. So in other words, the video kind of should just reflect what's on the rest of the website. Now, the rest of the website generally is like your credentials, your qualifications, of course, because that's very important. And then I would actually incorporate in the about section. Oftentimes the about section is very clinical. It's very dry, very sterile. No one ever reads the thing other than looking at what degrees and what qualifications you've got. But if you incorporate a bit of storytelling into it as well, so a bit of story about like, where you came through, did you have any lived experiences? What prompted you to become a doctor? What were those kind of profound moments? Because all of a sudden it humanizes the medical professional rather than it simply just being another run of the mill bio or about section as well, right? So it's like how you explain it versus what you explain. So you've got the about section, you've got the above the fold, and then below that, honestly, for me, obviously within AHPRA guidelines, is really just about like, case studies, who you've helped, and obviously with patient confidentiality as well. And it's very unconventional, but what we've found is that what people are looking for is they're going, have you helped someone else?
Like me.
Like me.
Yeah.
That's all people want, right? And all it takes is just one situation for that to happen, for them to tip over the other edge and go, I'll work with you.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because like the standard way that I guess a lot of doctors do it is that, you have all of those things in text. Yes. And then there was like, oh, this person, for example, is I'll use a neurologist, are specialized in these sort of condition states.
Yes.
But then it doesn't really give much of a story about that. It's just
It's for doctors.
It's just a line.
Yeah.
So it's really not for the patient. It's for
Because the patient's not medically literate. You know, what you're looking for is, going back to the Feynman technique, is if you can almost just like rethink the way you communicate to your patients or your prospects, that you make it easy to understand. Because again, that's another form of friction. If I have to use cognitive load to then understand what is on your website, to figure out whether or not this particular medical professional is the right one for me, that's a lot of effort. I'd rather go somewhere that I don't. The advantage though in the medical professional space goes back to the whole trust thing. It's like more often than not, they'll do it anyway. Even if they don't understand it, they'll probably inquire anyway. But why make it even harder for people? Just make it easier, and you'll cut through the noise as well, because everyone is still doing it that old fashioned way, whereas you're coming in with something very new and very different as well, and be able to just communicate that in a simple and easy way to understand as well.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah.
So I think the simplification of language is like a massive thing, because it's like, I mean, lawyers are guilty of this as well. They talk to you like you're a lawyer. You know, like, I've got no idea what you're talking about. Like, I was talking to a personal injury lawyer and he was using all these acronyms. He was talking about all these like terminology, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? You've lost me. And this was a personal family situation where it was like a family member was in a car accident. It was just talking about, and I just, at the end of it, I was like, I'm not sure if I can work with you, because if you can't explain to me how you're helping me and what my pros and cons are, what's the risks and what's the rewards in this situation, then I'd rather take no action than to take action and then have a consequence that I'm going to have to live with that's not going to be of my benefit as well. And so oftentimes I think there's a lot of similarities in that and the medical field, where it's like, well, if it's not something that's like super urgent and acute, the better thing to do is to not do anything, right? Which no one wins in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. No, that's very interesting. Any other sort of areas that one should go into, especially for some pearls of wisdom or tricks of the trade that you're happy to share?
I actually think the lowest hanging fruit for most medical professionals is actually advertising. You don't need to be complicated about advertising. I think a lot of marketing agencies and marketers like to make it seem like they're doing some wizardry. It's not that difficult. And I know you actually are quite savvy with, even running ads as well. It is not that difficult, to be quite frank. And a lot of the times right now, what we're seeing is because of the APRA guidelines and actually, Facebook and Instagram, these platforms, these social media platforms are actually clamping down on your ability to kind of like take advantage of people. It's actually just a game of brand awareness again. Right. And so what I actually recommend a lot of businesses in this space, and it doesn't matter if you're running a GP practice or if you're a specialist or radiology or, pathology and things like that, is simply get some good quality photos and some good quality videos done. And then you simply just target within a certain radius of your local area. Right? Because this is the whole, I mean, back in the day, you used to do the letterbox drops, same thing, but just done with digital now, right? Because most people spend time online. And so what I say to most is like, if you just don't want to, I'm too busy. I don't want to get in front of the camera. I don't want to put in the effort, blah, blah, blah. The easiest way is either do it yourself or you get someone to do it like us, is just to go, I'm going to put some photos and put a video up of where our practice is, where it's located, who we help, right? Just like a billboard. Right. It's a modern day billboard. And you can easily spend like
it's a couple bucks.
like $10 a day or $1,000 a month, right? Which is chump change. And I've seen medical practices pick up 20, 30, 40 new patients every single month just through this methodology, just by doing that. Because most of the time people spending more time on their screens than physically out there. They just, you don't get the same footprint.
That's a sad metric, isn't it? They're spending more time on their phone.
It's pretty sad, but it's like, that's where the attention shifts. And so it's a cheap way to do it. It's an easy way to do it. And it doesn't require much more of your time. You've got to spend the money, but I think for medical businesses in general, the return on investment is actually quite high. I've got clients who sometimes, like say in e-commerce, where their margins are like a couple of dollars, they're like, man, if my cost per, customer goes up $1 or $2, I make no profit. Whereas I think with medical professionals, your margins are so high, you can afford to do this, on a regular basis as well. And then what I say is, this is kind of like, if you were to think about this is phase 1. Phase 2 is of the profit that you make from these new patients, it's what we call self-liquidating. So essentially the new patients you acquire should be able to cover your advertising costs, which means that if for every $1 that you put in, you make more than $1 back, so that you make $4 back, you can scale this to infinity. You can spend, instead of $1,000, you spend
I see what you mean.
$10,000.
So you're compounding.
You're just compounding.
Yeah.
Right. And if anyone, because this is investing for doctors, right? It's a growth loop.
Yes.
So it's a growth hack. And some of the biggest tech companies out there have been able to do this. So when you think about Amazon back in the day, Amazon got really big selling books because they only sold books back in the day because they bought Google ads. And then what ended up happening was they realized, for every $1 that I put into Google ads, we're getting like $12 back.
Yeah.
So they're just spending millions because it's ROI positive from day one. They're self-liquidating. You're never dipping in the red. You're never having to spend money out of your own pocket as a result. And then what ends up happening is, naturally, most of the time when you do ads, it will progressively get more and more expensive. Like the cost to acquire a patient will get more expensive over time. You won't see it quickly, but like say this year, it'll cost you, say, I don't know, $5 to get a patient. Next year it might be $5.20, then $5.80, then $6. And then at some point, it'll get too expensive. And the reason why is because the more people who realize that they can advertise on these platforms, is demand and supply. It just gets more expensive. So in those cases, what you want to do is you want to future-proof yourself, and you want to take some of the money that you've made, that profit, and not only put it back into the ads, but then spend a portion of that on organic content, which is basically Instagram videos, YouTube content, basically. Because what content allows you to do is it doesn't cost you any money to get in front of people, but you have to be good in front of the camera. You have to have some decent level of skill, know how the game is played. But it actually lowers your customer acquisition costs over time. So for example, an accountant that we work with, he was doing ads in the early days. It was costing him, I think like $40 to acquire a business client. And then he saw it was going up. It was like 42, 48, 54.
Yeah.
And then we started doing YouTube. We started doing organic content, and we've actually pulled back on ads because now he's at a stage where he's got quite a large audience. And going back to that example,
and
I said the content just now takes over, and his CAC, which is customer acquisition cost, started to come down. So his for how much he spends in marketing versus how much he makes, his customer acquisition cost has gone from 40 something dollars down to about $12, right? And that's just because it's cheaper to acquire customers in the long run. But without going too technical, the reason why you don't do organic from the beginning is because you got to do that for like 6 to 12 months before you start seeing customers come in. Yeah. Right. And that's just because these platforms don't reward you from day one. They want to see you be consistent. It's like going to the gym. It's like, you're not going to get a 6-pack from day one. You got to do this for 6 to 12 months of just consistency to do that. And so it's like this kind of blended strategy. You go paid first and then move into organic, and then you kind of reap the rewards with the long-term game of organic as well. Yeah. Awesome.
I think that's quite a comprehensive sort of, I guess, a little blueprint on how to get started in individual businesses and practices and that sort of thing. What I also see amongst doctors is that there are some doctors who are very interested in, disseminating knowledge and basically just trying to get the best information out there, and then using that to either build a personal profile, which is not really a customer acquisition sort of strategy, but it's really to build reputation and to build, or actually to lead a talking point. For instance, recently I caught up with a doctor, and she was really, really passionate about reducing the amount of misinformation in particular sort of fields. And there was another doctor who was very interested in talking about, say, sexual health. And as we all know, there's lots of content on social media which is like completely unfiltered, unregulated, and probably not even correct. What can we do as a medical professional to get into that space and to be, I guess, a leading voice in whatever space one chooses to be? Yeah,
it's definitely a wild west on socials because there's a lot of unqualified opinions or so-called armchair experts who seem to, like, COVID probably was amplified that.
The volume dials up and all that stuff. Yeah,
absolutely, right. Yeah, and I remember watching it, and I could see qualified medical professionals becoming increasingly frustrated about it because the skill of disseminating knowledge and expertise and wisdom on socials is a different game to most industries. Like in the medical profession, it's like peer-reviewed journals. Like you'd write these sort of like in-depth studies and things like that as well.
But even an expert opinion is useful, right? But the thing is that I feel like us being the experts are not putting our opinion out there, and some really terrible opinions are being put out in the wild, and they get millions of views sometimes, and it's really scary because then we have to then fight that misinformation. Or we have patients come to us and say, oh, I saw this on TikTok, or I saw this on Instagram, why are you saying blah blah blah? And then that really harms the patient-doctor relationship, and it feels like we don't have the weapon to fight against that.
So I always say to that is the game of putting content out is a different skill to being an expert or being a medical professional.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because it's your ability to, again, communicate, your ability to message, but it's to understand the algorithm and understand how the algorithm works and the audience on the other side. Now, I say what most people do, the biggest mistake that I see medical professionals do is that they assume that you know that they're a medical professional, that they're an expert. What ends up happening most of the time is, unless you're wearing your scrubs, unless you're in a medical practice, which you can deliberately do that, right? If you just look like a regular person on camera and you're just talking about this and you're not telling people that you're a medical professional and this is what your stance is, you will not get the cut through, because there is infinitely millions of people out there who are so good at this, about getting content out to break through the noise and grab attention better than you, because that's what they do full time. That's their full time job. So as doctors, there's kind of like a very simple, I guess, framework. I say right now, these days, you can literally pick up the phone, you can film yourself, and you can talk to camera, and that's adequate enough for you to get reach. But it's about the order in which you explain things as well. So if you think about the script that you write, the script has to follow a certain order. And I'll sort of explain this in kind of a few parts, right? The first part is what we call the hook. So the hook is literally when someone's scrolling through their phone, what's the thing that grabs attention to them?
That's that 2-3 seconds.
That's that 2-3 seconds. It's what you say in the first 2-3 seconds, but also what you show in those first 2-3 seconds. Okay. So what you say oftentimes has to be big statement, something attention grabbing, something that breaks the pattern, right? So if you think, and this is why it's so important to actually spend time on these platforms, because you want to see what other people are watching, right? And go, right, when my one shows up as the next video, how do I get someone to stop immediately, right? So that's oftentimes a statement hook, right?
Yeah, it's a bit, sometimes very bold claims. And
it's like, what's that Simpsons episode where Homer goes, he yells out sex, and then everyone stops and looks at him and he's like, now that I got your attention. Right?
Yeah.
So don't do that, but you understand the power of a hook and grabbing attention there as well. And if you watch enough and you actually just reverse engineer and you go, why am I stopping at these videos? You can see people do certain things. They're like, but there's also what's called a visual hook. So a visual hook is, as I said, if you're wearing, your medical attire, if you're in a medical practice, if you have a stethoscope around your neck, right, these sort of things immediately grab someone's attention because they go, authority, you're a doctor, right, or you're a medical specialist as well. It's when you use the combination of a visual hook and a verbal hook that is the most powerful. That's how you grab attention, right? So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is what we call the credibility play, or the introduction. So before you start talking about what your opinion is and what it is, you just need to simply state who you are and why you should listen to me. Because that's what the audience is thinking. The audience is going, why should I listen to your opinion? And then should I be qualifying your opinion? Because a lot of people are right now waking up to the fact that there's a lot of fake experts out there, and they don't know who to trust. And so if you said something like, hi, I'm Dr. B, I run multiple medical practices, I'm an emergency physician at Westmead Hospital in Northwest Sydney, and I, and I've been a medical professional for the last 10, 20 years. You go, that line all of a sudden then qualifies what you're saying after that fact. Okay.
Hook, qualify.
Hook and qualify, right? Qualify yourself. Once you've done that, that person then goes, okay, you have permission to have my attention now. I will keep watching, right? Because at that point in time, I'll give you an example. Imagine watching a video and it's exact same video. Person A is Warren Buffett. Person B is just a random school teacher. No disrespect to school teachers. And this topic is about how to become financially free. You're going to listen to Warren Buffett more because Warren Buffett has the credentials, has the qualification, has the track record and the results to speak about this with authority. The problem is on the internet, sometimes you can't tell if that person has the credibility or not.
Yeah, if you're a beginner, you don't know who Warren Buffett
You don't
is.
know,
Yeah.
right? There's so many. This is the typical.
He seems like an old man, so maybe
The typical finance influencers.
Yeah.
The ones going, this is what I invest in for ETFs and da da da.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't even know if you're financially free. Right?
Yeah.
Like you don't know if what they're giving you. And I think ASIC recently came down on them because they were basically giving out financial advice without an AFSL.
Yeah.
Right, as a result. So there's a lot of that happening. So you do the hook, you do the qualify, then you move into the delivery, right? Which is your meat and potatoes, like what you want to say, you say what you need to say. But the thing to most remember is I'm not going to teach people how to say it or like what's the best, the way to do it, but just understand as a first principle basis is that how do I deliver the information with the least amount of friction with the most amount of value? Friction is meaning, does the person who listens to me and watches me need to use a lot of brain power to understand what I'm saying? Because if the answer is yes, you haven't done a good job. It means that they are really going to struggle. And what are people going to do? I don't understand it. Swipe. Okay. Second one is that what I call the per unit of time of value. It's like, don't beat around the bush, get straight to the point, right? So the per second of value needs to be quite high because what happens is, and Aussies are really bad at this, is we take a long time to kind of get to the punchline.
Get to the point.
Yeah. So if you don't get to the punchline, you actually run into a lot of issues because that person doesn't have that same level of patience. And it's because people who don't spend time on digital apply the same logic of going, hey, when I do this in a conference or a presentation, people just sit there. They just sit through it. Yeah, that's because it's really embarrassing for that person to get up and leave the room because everyone can see you. But in social media world, there's no consequences of swiping away. No one knows who you are. It's completely anonymous.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? You don't care. You could be nude, in bed, listening to a medical professional talk about menopause, right?
Yeah.
So you have to understand that this is the most least patient audience you will ever get. And so you have to spend the time there. And so like going back to your original question, you're like, what do people do? If you have a message you want to get across to everyone, it's not the gear that you buy. It's not the quality of the audience, whatever. It's just simply going, how do I tell people the answer they want to know as quickly as possible by following just that framework? So hook, qualify, and then give the people what they want as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Wow. And, that's for the information stuff. And I see a lot of influencers use sort of humor, for instance, or they do reaction videos to
or skits,
other things, also skits. For example, Dr. Glock, I can never pronounce it, Glaucom Flecken, the ophthalmologist.
Yes.
He does great skits, and they seem to resonate with a lot of doctors. And I mean, I get that's very humorous, and people consume that for entertainment.
Yeah.
But he's also then pivoted to a lot more sort of serious topics, like how health insurance in America is unaffordable, or the systems are rotting the American public, and that sort of thing.
Yep.
Like, is there like an avenue for that sort of dual purpose, or more than a single purpose kind of channel, or is that just something you pivot along the way, or you start something that's supposed to be entertaining, funny, and then you start talking about serious things?
Yeah, I think people misconstrue like views for like value, in the sense that just because you have a lot of views doesn't mean like. I guess the question I ask is like, would you rather a room of 1,000 of your exact target audience, or would you rather a room of 1 million of like just random people? You would rather the room of 1,000 of your exact audience, because you want to make sure it's the right people seeing the content, not everybody seeing the content. The ones that you often see with the entertainment content, or content that's like the topics are really broad or universal, right? Like COVID being the most universal because everyone in the world was affected by it, meant that your target market or your target audience was really, really broad and really, really wide as well. So I always say for people, I'm like, what you're trying to achieve is you're trying to achieve what's called niche virality, not broad virality. So niche virality being like, going back to the accountant example, is like, hey, I only want business owners to see this. Or in the GP's cases, like for women's health, I only want middle-aged women going through menopause to see this. And so it's like 5,000 views for that is worth a lot more than 500,000 views of just some random cat video or some skit that you did as well. So I think the only reason why you'd go into entertainment, just try and maximize views, is purely because you want to be either making money or you'll be recognized for that. right? And making money in the sense of like sponsorships and brand deals, and you want to be part of brands.
But that's
like
a completely different.
That's a completely different play. For most medical professionals or business owners in the medical field, is you want either more patients or you want to be recognized as a subject matter expert or an authority to be invited on stage and to spread your message, basically. In those such cases, stick to being professional. And that's just simple talking to camera, talking exactly as that ophthalmologist did at the end, is just pushing your agenda based on what it is that you believe in as well. And it doesn't need to be complex, it doesn't need to be crazy. I could show you dozens of examples of people who sit in their bedrooms or sit in their office and they just film, and they do great by doing so as well. So you don't need to feel like you're chasing the trends and what those things are. I think the thing that's always going to be evergreen is just like talking to camera and explaining what you do best and what you know best as well.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's refreshing to hear, because you know, there's obviously a lot of people, they look at how many views they get and then get excited about it. But then ultimately the views are for a purpose, and you have to.
There's a human on the other side for every view, right? And so again, you just got to understand, who am I going after? It's always the end in mind. What is my goal? Who am I trying to go after? And then what is the best format and the best way that I can get that across to the individual, right? Just because you're not doing these weird like skits where you're talking to yourself and you're pretending to be two different people, or you're not dancing. Like, I think the biggest fear for a lot of people is like, do I have to dance to get attention? You don't have to dance, right? Like you can remain professional and still get results. And I see it, like, I'll give an example, like Dr. Julie, who's a psychologist in the UK, she's got these beautiful videos where she's explaining a certain concept around, you know, either mental health or something like that, but she's using a technique called Pope in the pool. Now, I'm not saying you have to do this, but Pope in the pool. Pope in the pool. And basically Pope in the pool means when you are doing two things simultaneously. She's explaining something to you whilst visually, you know, like blowing up a balloon, and there's like tension. You don't know when the balloon's going to pop, right? And she's using that as a metaphor to describe what it's like to deal with stress, right? And so some people find tactics and strategies like this where they're like, do this technique.
That's interesting, because like there's some videos where they're talking about a topic and they're doing something which is completely unrelated.
Yeah, like chopping vegetables.
Like chopping vegetables or folding clothes. And I mean, I applaud them for being able to multitask like that. I find that quite impressive. But like, it's almost like you're listening to their content, but you're visually you're distracted by the menial tasks they're doing. And is that a technique that's just hook people in?
That's just people trying to maximize the algorithm, because the algorithm measures what we call engagement metrics, which is how long does someone watch the video. So even if you can eke out an extra 5 seconds, 10 seconds of time watching it, then that rewards you, because then TikTok and Instagram goes, I'll show more people because now I know that you like more of the content. Right? That's
even though it has nothing to relate
to. Even though it has nothing to relate to it. I got a migration lawyer who literally just like is she's like chopping up a pineapple, and then halfway through it, sorry, it was a durian. She picked it up and it came leaking out, and she was like, and it was like that. But then that video did very, very well, even though she was talking about some new visa that was coming out. Because it was just this thing where people just like, this is so different and novel. I've never seen this before. So it's this this concept that I kind of explain to people called Remarkability, Decay, which is remarkable being something that's novel and new. When something is really novel and new, it gets a lot of reach, right? But when everyone does it, so when, say, the first person who does a dance trend, it's great. But the 100,000th person who does it, you're like, another one. And so what ends up happening is that a lot of people feel like they're chasing the trends because they're looking for the next novel, remarkable thing to create. And then that does really well. But then when everyone copies it and everyone does it, it's not that great anymore, right? So it's like the way to describe it's like frozen yogurt, right? Froyo. It's like, Yoichi's done it. Now Yoga Berry does it. And then before the 10th brand comes out with Froyo, everyone's over Froyo. They're like, I don't want to do it Froyo
and then
anymore.
they die off, and then
it dies off and it comes back again. So that's Remarkability, Decay. So there's a cycle, right? There's a pendulum. It swings and roundabouts. So content is the same. You can follow that, which I find very tiring. Or you follow the evergreen stuff that has always worked well, which is just talking to camera and just giving people what they need to know. That's all you got to do.
Okay, so don't have to be fancy or think too much.
No, nothing. You don't even have to you don't have to chop vegetables at the same time. I'm just saying there's certain tactics that people do that because they're trying to optimize every little bit of that algorithm performance for their videos as well. Right. It's really tiring. Unless you do this full time, I don't recommend you do it, basically.
Okay. No, that's very interesting. And I think this is going to be a very rewarding episode for a lot of our listeners, because like most people don't think like this, and this is my first time hearing about some of the concepts you're talking about as well.
Yeah.
And being able to put a name or label to that is very useful.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gan. And as always, if anyone wants to get involved, the link's down there and you can reach out to you.
Pleasure. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thanks, B.
This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. The information and opinions shared are not intended as personal financial advice. The content presented should not be relied upon for making financial, investment, or other decisions. Listeners are strongly encouraged to seek the advice of qualified financial or legal professionals before making any financial decisions. While we aim to provide valuable and accurate information, we make no guarantees regarding the completeness or accuracy of the content. Any reliance on the information provided is done at your own risk.